2024 has been a year to remember for Carey Kish. Kish, who lives on Mount Desert Island, has been an avid hiker for more than 50 years.
He also writes about hiking for the Maine Sunday Telegram and is the author of several hiking guidebooks. This year, he achieved what's known in American hiking as the Triple Crown, an honor that goes to the small number of people who have thru-hiked the 3 most famous long-distance trails in the country.
We caught up with him back home in Maine after he had completed this feat to talk about his remarkable accomplishment.
In the last decade, Carey Kish hiked the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and from spring to fall in 2024, the Continental Divide Trail. The Continental Divide was the most daunting. On much of it, natural water is scarce, so hikers rely on other sources.
There's cattle tanks that you get your water out of. Some don't look all that good.
Not real appetizing?
But you dip down below the green algae and the dead bugs on top, and it's good water, and of course you treat it.
On the Continental Divide Trail, the challenges abounded. Snow, cold, heat, unending mountains, thin air at high elevations, and on some days, wind that just never let up.
You're so exposed all the time, and you're up high, and the wind just blows. It's something you have to deal with. So, after a while, it really kind of addles your brain, you know, and you never really get used to it.
Moments before he took his first step on this more than 2,500-mile journey, Carey said a prayer. This, he says, was the most spiritual hike he's ever done.
I lost my mom last year. She was almost 97, and so I carried her picture with me. I felt like she was with me the entire time.
One trap he didn't want to fall into on the trail was thinking too far ahead. So his goals each day were uncomplicated. Hike the distance he wanted to cover, consume sufficient food and water, set up camp, and go to sleep.
I've learned that on other hikes, but this one in particular, I just knew it was going to be long and hard. Beautiful but brutal is how one hiking friend termed it, and it was. So you didn't want to eat the elephant all at once, you know, you wanted to take it a chunk at a time.
Everything he needed went into this pack, which, depending on how much water and provisions he was carrying, weighed between 25 and 35 pounds. A quick partial list of what he carried, starting with grizzly spray.
Plenty of other hikers saw grizzly bears and black bears, but I didn't. And you know, I'm kind of okay with that. This is a Kevlar sack called an sack. And you can just barely get a week's worth of food in there. Toilet kit, very important. Trowel, TP, wet wipes, hand sanitizer.
Crucial.
Gotta do that. And not a lot of people took freestanding tents because they're a little bit heavier. This thing was bomb-proof. I could set it up anywhere, and I could stay dry in any amount of wind and rain, snow, hail, didn't matter.
And boots, 3 different pairs.
So these were each good for about, what, 900, 1,000 miles?
1,000 miles, and I wore these. This is my 3rd pair. These made the last 300 miles to the Canadian border.
How old were you when you started the trip?
65. I might have been the oldest guy to finish this year. I don't know.
How physically demanding was this hike compared to others that you've done?
By far and away, the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, the average day was like climbing Katahdin 1.5, 2 times in a day with your pack on. And at altitudes twice as high as Katahdin. It just never, it's unrelenting.
Carey tried to hike on average about 18 miles a day. That was 9 to 10 hours on the trail, followed by 9 to 10 hours of sleep at night.
You know, I gotta say, from about the middle of Colorado on, I was tired all the time. And you rest at night, yeah, but do you fully recover? No. But you just decide you're going to get up in the morning and do it all over again. And
I know it takes a long time for it all to sink in,
yeah,
and for you to process it all, and you haven't had that much time, but after a few weeks now, what do you make of the experience?
I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I don't have to do it again.
So, what comes next? Carey says he's probably going to retire from doing trails longer than 1,000 miles, but he's already plotting his next major hike.
I am planning to do the Camino de Santiago across the north of Spain next spring. It's a 550-mile pilgrimage, and it's got obviously a real spiritual side to it. And there'll be a lot of people. I can carry a lighter pack, no tent, no sleeping bag, no stove. I think it's going to be a nice thing to do.
So a couple of other things. Carey didn't hike the Continental Divide in a straight shot from south to north because there was still so much snow in the mountains. He started in New Mexico, then he hiked part of Wyoming, then back south to Colorado, and then finally north to Idaho and Montana. And while he was hiking, his wife Fran was driving a parallel route in their camper for much of the hike. So they would meet up about once a week or so, and Carey would get a hot shower and some good meals, and he'd get to relax and he'd get to see his wife, and that was all, of course, a wonderful part of the experience. But he did the entire trail on foot.
That is wild.
Entire trail. Lost more than 30 pounds, and he actually was able to check his weight on a scale in a Walmart in Rawlins, Wyoming. It had an open package. He took the scale off the shelf, he put it on the floor, he got on, and he saw that he'd lost more than 30 pounds.
Oh my God, well, all I can think of is, I don't know if you saw quickly the photo that popped up, his Spam-wich that he was eating.
Yeah.
Gotta eat what you can eat out there on the trails, I guess.
Yeah, then when they get into town, they chow,
I
trust
bet.
me.
Good stuff.